Thank you.
Tonight, George W. Bush defends his record.
Don't tell me the federal response was slow.
Admits mistakes.
Clearly putting a mission accomplished on an aircraft carrier.
And gets reflective as the curtain comes down on his presidency. I'm Katie Couric. Also tonight, no jail for Bernard Madoff. A judge refuses to revoke his bail. He'll stay in his luxury apartment for now. As the Palestinian death toll in Gaza tops 900, Israel is split over declaring victory or continuing the war. And the road to the inauguration. If it weren't for these trailblazers, there might not be a President Obama.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
And good evening, everyone. 8 days before the transfer of power, the incoming president asked the outgoing president for a transfer of money. Barack Obama wants access to the second half of the financial industry bailout package when he takes office, $350 billion. And Mr. Bush said he'll ask Congress to provide it. Mr. Obama said he wants the money ready in case there's a new emergency in the financial system. And with Mr. Bush about to leave office, he held his final news conference today. He gave a spirited defense of his policies, but also admitted mistakes. Jim Axelrod has covered the Bush White House. CBS News political consultant Dan Bartlett worked in it. And, Jim, this was a side of the president we have not seen before.
Katie, he was as introspective as I've ever seen him, talking about a whole host of mistakes and disappointments. For instance, he said pursuing Social Security reform instead of immigration reform after his 2004 reelection was a mistake. There was some contrition there. This is a president who today seemed to be speaking as much to historians who will assess his legacy as to reporters.
And Dan, do you wish your former boss had been more candid during the course of his presidency and more willing to admit mistakes?
Well, Katie, there's no question that the American people got a window into the president I saw on a daily basis, showing a wide range of emotions and reflection and a lot of that steadfastness on the big decisions of the day. So you look back on it and you say, wow, that's the president I'd love to work for. And if the American people saw more of that, whether they would appreciate and look more favorably on him, maybe so. But I liked what I saw today, Katie.
Let's listen to some of the president's news conference today.
I believe the phrase burdens of the office is overstated. Yeah, it's kind of like, why me? Oh, the burdens, you know. Why did the financial collapse have to happen on my watch? It's just pathetic, isn't it? Self-pity. If you were sitting there and heard that the Depression could be greater than the Great Depression, I hope you would act too, which I did. And we've taken extraordinary measures. One of the very difficult parts of the decision I made on the financial crisis was to use hardworking people's money to help prevent there to be a crisis. And in so doing, some of that money went into Wall Street firms that caused the crisis in the first place. I wasn't kidding when I said Wall Street got drunk and we got the hangover. Clearly putting a mission accomplished on an aircraft carrier was a mistake. There have been disappointments. Abu Ghraib obviously was a huge disappointment during the presidency. Not having weapons of mass destruction was a significant disappointment. I don't know if you want to call those mistakes or not, but things didn't go according to plan, let's put it that way.
Meanwhile, Dan, I know you've described the administration's reaction to Hurricane Katrina as one of the most politically damaging of the presidency. He defended the administration's actions very vociferously today. Were you surprised at that?
Not quite, Katie. It must have been, it was, when I was there, one of the most frustrating chapters in the presidency. We went through a lot, but that one particularly because of not only the public PR reception of some of the decisions he made, but also the enormity of the challenge, the difficulty of getting help to people. And we all struggled through that week to do what we thought was right. And I think looking back on that, he felt like some of the big decisions we made, we did get right. Some of the PR things, we could have done better.
Let's listen to what he had to say about that.
I thought long and hard about Katrina. You know, could I have done something differently? Like land Air Force One, either New Orleans or Baton Rouge. The problem with that is that law enforcement would have been pulled away from the mission. And then your questions, I suspect, would have been, How could you possibly have flown Air Force One into Baton Rouge and police officers that were needed to expedite traffic out of New Orleans were taken off the task to look after you? People said, but the federal response was slow. Don't tell me the federal response was slow when there was 30,000 people pulled off roofs right after the storm passed. I was affected by TV after the elections. When I saw people saying, I never thought I would see the day that a black person would be elected president. And a lot of people had tears streaming down their cheeks when they said it. And so I am considering myself fortunate to have a front row seat on what is going to be an historic moment for the country. And he'll get sworn in, and they'll have the lunch and all the, all the deal up there on Capitol Hill. And then he'll come back and go through the inauguration, and then he'll walk in the Oval Office. And there'll be a moment when the responsibilities of the president land squarely on his shoulders. Sometimes the biggest disappointments will come from your so-called friends. And there'll be disappointments, I promise you. He'll be disappointed.
A wide-ranging and fascinating final news conference today by President Bush. Jim Axelrod, Dan Bartlett, thank you so much for your perspectives tonight.
Thanks, Katie.
And President Bush, by the way, will deliver a farewell address to the nation this Thursday evening, and CBS News will bring it to you live. One more political note tonight. Senate Democrats did an about-face today and said they will accept Roland Burris of Illinois, even though he was appointed by that state's embattled governor. Burris is expected to be seated this week. And with that, the Democrats will have a majority of at least 58 seats, with the Al Franken-Norm Coleman battle in Minnesota going to the courts. Turning now to the Bernard Madoff scandal, if it's possible, victims of the alleged swindler are even more furious tonight after a judge refused to revoke his bail. Here's Randall Pinkston.
The judge's decision leaves accused swindler Bernard Madoff in his $7 million Manhattan penthouse to await trial, while investors like Larry Leaf, cheated out of his life savings, are outraged.
He's scamming the government still. He's scamming a judge. The only way you're going to stop Mr. Madoff is put him in jail, just like every other criminal.
In his 22-page order, Judge Ronald Ellis acknowledged investor outrage, but said the government did not demonstrate either a serious risk of flight or obstruction of justice. The prosecutor wanted his bail revoked because Madoff mailed family and friends an estimated $1 million in jewelry last month, property the government says could be used to repay his victims.
That's when they gave the first money.
Among them, New Jersey state lawmaker Loretta Weinberg, who had built up a 30-year nest egg, now lost in the Madoff financial wreck.
I try not to be scared of the fact that what I thought was going to protect my future is actually non-existent. It's just not there.
While Madoff remains out of jail, the judge tightened conditions on his bail agreement. He can't transfer any assets, must provide an inventory of everything in his Manhattan home, and allow his mail to be opened by a government-approved security firm. And the order also bars his wife from distributing any of her property. Madoff is barred from leaving his apartment except for court appearances, and that could be mid-February, when the U.S. attorney is scheduled to file his indictment. Randall Pinkston, CBS News, New York.
Turning overseas, Israel continued to pound Hamas positions on day 17 of the war in Gaza. More than 900 Palestinians have been killed in the fighting. Officials inside Gaza say half the victims were civilians. Mark Phillips has the latest from the Israel-Gaza border.
For the Israelis, the only way out is in, deeper into Gaza with more troops and more firepower, seeking out Hamas fighters, and when they can't find them, flattening their houses. But Hamas continued to fire its rockets, although fewer of them, into Israel. There were no reported injuries, but there were plenty again in Gaza, whose people continued to pay the highest price in this conflict. The Israeli war cabinet is reportedly split on whether to push further into Gaza's urban areas and cause more civilian casualties, or declare victory and stop Either way, Israel's foreign minister told CBS News Israeli troops may be forced to stay in Gaza for some time.
We hope to find the way to live in peace and to protect our citizens without reoccupying Gaza. But at the end of the day, we need to, in the Middle East, the choice is between bad options.
The options are particularly bad for Palestinian families trying to stay out of harm's way. Many in the southern part of the Strip got phone calls from the Israelis warning them to leave because of imminent attacks. They didn't need to be told twice. The Israelis say that they have intelligence from within Gaza that the Hamas leadership there, unlike the brave talking leadership in exile in Syria, is beginning to crack. And so they're determined to pile on the pressure until it does. Diplomatic efforts may be continuing to try to end the fighting, but they have yet to provide the protection from Hamas rockets Israel says it needs. Can you get out and still have the guarantees that you want?
The best guarantee is our forces,
which were in action again tonight. Mark Phillips, CBS News on the Israel-Gaza border.
Back in this country, the government says gas prices are up 17 cents in the past 2 weeks to an average $1.78 a gallon. Gas prices are just one factor clouding the future of the auto industry. Anthony Mason reports now from a subdued Detroit auto show.
After a dismal year, Detroit's trying to generate some electricity at the auto show.
The Dodge Circuit EV.
Chrysler unveiled the prototype for an electric sports car. GM rolled out the Chevy Volt again and announced plans to build a factory to make the lithium-ion batteries that'll power it.
This is a further demonstration of our commitment to the electrification of the automobile.
The electric car is coming. The question is, how soon?
It's about where personal computers were back in the early 1980s. Clearly the next big trend. How fast they take off is anyone's guess.
Electric may be the future, but first Detroit has to get past the present. This is a distinctly more austere auto show. Last year, Chrysler drove cattle through the streets of Detroit to launch its latest truck. This year,
we left the cows behind. It's a bear market anyway, so.
The industry, which sold a record 17.4 million cars in 2000, sold just 13 million last year. And analysts say that could fall to 11 million this year.
Can you survive if the industry is selling 11 million cars a year?
There is a question of whether any automobile company anywhere in the world can survive at a consistent 11 million industry level. Now, if it continues, I would imagine that you would see mass consolidations in the industry, massive plant shutdowns, massive layoffs.
And a bailout from Washington could get very expensive.
If demand doesn't pick up, it'll cost anywhere from $50 to $100 million to underwrite Detroit for the next 2 years.
So the fate of the industry will be in the hands of the Obama administration, which may have to decide not just how much taxpayers are ready to invest in the auto companies, but what the industry itself ultimately will look like. Katie?
Anthony Mason reporting from Detroit for us tonight. Anthony, thank you. Coming up next right here on the CBS Evening News, the government gave banks billions of your tax dollars to fix the credit crisis. So why are they using it to buy other banks? We'll follow the money. In the coming weeks, Congress and Barack Obama will talk about how to spend the second half of the financial bailout package. But where did the first half go? Not where we were told. Cheryl Atkinson follows the money.
When Congress passed the $700 billion bailout, the whole idea was to buy failed mortgage assets. But once the bill became law on October 3rd, Henry Paulson's Treasury Department moved quickly on an entirely different front. Give bailout money to select banks to help them buy competitors. It was largely under the public radar, with only anonymous government officials acknowledging the strategy.
Breaks with congressional intent.
Founding to me, Congress was lied to.
But CBS News has learned the banking industry was clued in from the start. Listen to what BB&T Bank's chief executive told analysts in a conference call shortly after the bailout passed. He's not talking about using bailout funds to help with mortgages or consumer credit, but to buy other banks.
This is a relatively inexpensive way to raise capital for acquisition opportunities.
A month later, they got $3 billion in bailout money. Just look at all the banks we found that have gotten taxpayer bailout funds and are gobbling up the competition. Bank of America received $15 billion and bought Merrill Lynch, which got $10 billion even as it was up for sale. Morgan Stanley is buying China Trust Bank. A half dozen more got bailout money and are buying other banks. Nobody from the Treasury Department would respond to our questions, but some analysts say the idea is to strengthen the banking industry by giving strong banks the means to take over weak ones. It's not necessarily working out that way. Some banks, judged by federal regulators as strong, like Merrill Lynch and Provident Bank shares, are the very ones getting bought out. And some in Congress are upset that the Treasury Secretary is handpicking winners and losers.
Hank Paulson gets to decide who lives and who dies, who buys whom.
Take PNC Bank and National City. Both wanted bailout money, but only PNC got it, then bought National City.
You picked a winner, PNC, and you picked a loser, National City Bank.
Congressman Dennis Kucinich is from Cleveland, where National City was based, and grilled the Treasury official in charge of the bailout, Neil Kashkari.
With deep respect, it is not appropriate for me to speak about an individual institution, but I can talk generally about these types of transactions. Well, with deep respect, you know, you put 4,000 people out of work in the city of Cleveland. Are you taking the Fifth Amendment here? No, sir. I don't think it's a good use of taxpayer money to put taxpayer capital into a financial institution that's going to fail. Well, you know what? That statement that you just made, you will hear about for the rest of your career.
With the bailout billions so far helping banks but not the mortgage crisis, congressional leaders this week said no further bailout money will be given to Treasury without much stricter conditions. Cheryl Atkinson, CBS News, Washington. And coming up next, why losing sleep could be hazardous to your health. A real wake-up call today about how much you're sleeping or not. The CDC says 30% of adult Americans average only 6 hours of sleep or less a night. If that's you, you're far more likely to come down with a cold or something worse. Dr. John LaPook has more.
Can you breathe in and out with your mouth open for me?
Jessie Furness is a working mother with a common problem, the common cold. And like many people, she's sleep deprived.
How many hours of sleep do you usually get every night?
5 to 6.
And how many do you think you need?
8 to 9.
It turns out if you don't snooze, you lose. A study of 153 healthy people found those with less than 7 hours of sleep were almost 3 times more susceptible to getting a cold than those with 8 hours or more.
It's been shown that if you're sleep deprived, you have a lower level of those natural cells that have the ability to fight off infection.
And sleep deprivation can affect more than immunity. It can change hormones, making people eat more and gain weight. Other problems? Hypertension, diabetes, and just plain grouchiness.
Are you cranky? Are you
My daughter would say I am.
While many people rely on sleeping pills, lab studies suggest that natural sleep may be more restorative.
Some of the medications can suppress certain parts of sleep which are very important for our normal functioning, particularly that kind of sleep called rapid eye movement sleep.
Here's a tip. Look out for medications or foods that can keep you awake. For some people, the caffeine from that morning cup of coffee can still be around at bedtime. Katie?
All right. John LaPook, John, thanks. And we'll be right back. And finally tonight, when Barack Obama becomes president next week, he'll be a living testament to the generations of African Americans who paved the way. Michelle Miller has the story of one history maker who's ready to witness history again as we look at the road to the inauguration.
I was number 7, that's right.
Lucky
7.
At 86, Roscoe Brown still fits into the flying jacket he wore in World War II.
The jacket I flew in when I was over Berlin shooting down a jet plane.
And next week, he'll be in D.C., an honored guest at President-elect Obama's inauguration.
To go for inauguration of the first African-American president that we like to think we helped make possible is really very exciting.
He's talking about being a part of the first all-black flying unit more than 60 years ago.
They were pioneers, and no pioneer has it easy.
about 1,000 pilots known today as the Tuskegee Airmen.
Even though the War Department had issued a study back in 1925 that said Negroes didn't have the intelligence or the courage or the leadership to be in combat units, we proved that we did.
Their job was to escort bombers and guard them from enemy fighters. But even in combat, the military was segregated, so they also had to fight prejudice from the same white pilots they were protecting.
One of the pilots from the Deep South said he wasn't going to sleep with any Negroes, and he's going to sleep in the plane. But when it got to be about 10 degrees, he finally let his basic needs overcome his prejudice, and he knocked on the door and said, "Can I come in?"
The Germans never shot down a bomber the Tuskegee Airmen were defending. Their accomplishments helped force the integration of the military. And next week, the military will answer to its first African-American commander-in-chief. All some 330 surviving members of the Tuskegee Airmen have been invited to President-elect Obama's swearing in.
If you could give President-elect Barack Obama one piece of advice, what would it be?
Be yourself. He has all the skills and ability to do it. Just be yourself, and we'll watch your back.
Given the record of the Tuskegee Airmen, that's no empty promise. Michelle Miller, CBS News, New York.
And that is the CBS Evening News. I'm Katie Couric. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.